Felt like the year the MonsterVerse truly leaned into its own mythology, giving fans moments that didn't just look spectacular, but felt earned, emotional, and unforgettable. Godzilla and Kong were no longer just titans smashing cities for survival or dominance. They became symbols, rivals, uneasy allies, and living legends whose actions reshaped the world around them. Across films, expanded scenes, and viral moments that dominated conversations all year, their presence left a mark that went far beyond sheer destruction. One of the most memorable moments came early in the year when Godzilla rose from the ocean under a blood-red sunrise, his dorsal plates glowing with a new intensity that immediately told audiences something had changed. This wasn't just another emergence shot. The camera lingered on his scars, the deep grooves etched into his scales from past battles, reminding everyone that this creature carries history on his body. When he unleashed a controlled but devastating atomic breath into the sky, not at an enemy but as a warning call, it felt like a declaration. Godzilla was no longer reacting to threats, he was asserting balance. That single roar, echoing across the sea, became one of the most replayed clips of the year. Kong's defining moments in 2025 leaned heavily into his evolution as a leader rather than just a fighter. Deep within the hollow earth, there was a quiet scene that surprised many viewers. Kong sat among the ruins of an ancient Titan civilization, running his hand across massive stone carvings that depicted battles eerily similar to his own past. There was no action, no music swelling dramatically, just the sound of wind and distant thunder. That stillness gave Kong a depth rarely afforded to giant monsters. It showed him not as a lone survivor anymore, but as the inheritor of a forgotten legacy, and that realization visibly weighed on him. When Godzilla and Kong finally shared the screen again in 2025, their interaction was layered with tension and respect. One standout moment occurred during a massive coastal battle where both monsters initially clashed, instinctively testing each other's strength. The fight was brutal but restrained, almost ritualistic, until a greater threat made itself known beneath the waves. What made the scene unforgettable wasn't the combat itself, but the pause. Godzilla stopped mid-charge, locked eyes with Kong, and slowly turned toward the emerging enemy. Kong hesitated for a heartbeat, then followed. That silent agreement, forged without words, said more about their relationship than any previous showdown. Godzilla's most chilling moment of the year came during a nighttime city sequence where he hunted an unseen adversary through darkened streets. The usual chaos was replaced by suspense. Buildings stood silent, lights flickering, as Godzilla moved with unexpected stealth. When his dorsal plates began to glow, illuminating the fog like ghostly blue flames, the effect was haunting. The atomic breath that followed wasn't explosive, it was precise, carving through shadows and revealing just how intelligent and deliberate Godzilla can be when truly challenged. Kong, on the other hand, delivered one of the most emotionally charged moments of 2025 during a battle where he was badly wounded and separated from his allies. Pinned beneath collapsing terrain, Kong struggled not with rage but exhaustion. The camera stayed close to his face, capturing the fear and determination in his eyes. When he finally broke free, using both strength and ingenuity rather than brute force, it felt like a triumph of will. His roar afterward wasn't a challenge to the world, but a reaffirmation to himself that he still belonged in it. Another unforgettable Godzilla moment came when humanity attempted, once again, to interfere with the natural order using experimental technology. Instead of immediately retaliating, Godzilla approached the facility slowly, almost cautiously. For a brief moment, it seemed like he was considering coexistence. That illusion shattered when the technology activated, triggering a reaction deep within him. The resulting surge of power was overwhelming, but what stuck with audiences was the sense of disappointment radiating from the Titan before he destroyed the installation. It reframed Godzilla not as a mindless force, but as a guardian repeatedly betrayed. Kong's bond with the Hollow Earth creatures was another highlight of 2025. In one breathtaking sequence, Kong stood atop a massive ridge as smaller titans gathered below him, responding to his presence. He didn't dominate them through fear. Instead, his posture, his calm, and his readiness to defend established him as their protector. When a new threat attacked, Kong leapt into action without hesitation, and the creatures followed. That moment cemented Kong as a king not by title, but by action. The final act of the year delivered what many fans now call one of the greatest MonsterVerse moments ever. Godzilla and Kong fought side by side against a threat that pushed both to their limits. There was a sequence where Godzilla charged his atomic breath while Kong, battered but unbroken, raised his weapon and timed his strike perfectly with the blast. The synchronization was stunning, a visual metaphor for how far they had come from rivals to partners of necessity. The impact of that combined attack rippled across the battlefield, altering the environment itself. In the aftermath, a quiet scene stood out more than the explosions. Godzilla, heavily drained, retreated to the ocean, his glow fading. Kong watched from the shore, not in victory, but in contemplation. When Godzilla turned back briefly and released a low, subdued roar, Kong responded with a nod rather than a challenge. It was a moment of mutual recognition, a closing chapter to a year defined by growth and understanding rather than dominance. What made Godzilla and Kong's 2025 moments truly memorable wasn't just the scale or spectacle, but the emotional weight behind them. Godzilla embodied the burden of balance, a force of nature struggling to protect a world that often misunderstands him. Kong represented resilience, legacy, and the search for belonging in a world constantly changing. Together, their stories intertwined in ways that elevated the MonsterVerse beyond simple monster battles. By the end of 2025, Godzilla and Kong were no longer just cinematic icons, they were characters whose journeys audiences followed with genuine investment. Their roars carried meaning, their battles told stories, and their silences spoke volumes. These moments didn't just dominate screens, they lingered in the minds of fans, setting a powerful foundation for whatever the MonsterVerse brings next.